Welcome back to the community, everybody, and thanks for being here. And to all my subscribers, thank you. I appreciate you. And also leaving the comments and hitting the thumbs up. Take a look at the website if you get a chance. You know the ritual. There's lots to see on there, and I'm still updating the website as we speak. Okay, today we're going to discuss and go over quite a few things with your bug running too hot. Could be your car McGee or your bus too. It's all the same functioning air-cooled system. We're going to go over that and talk about things you should and shouldn't do. And it don't make me the grand wizard. It's just common sense with a lot of it. But a lot of people are new to the game. Maybe they don't know. And maybe if you get one tip out of this, that's a good thing. Or newbies coming on, maybe they'll learn a lot from it because they don't understand it. Just like when I started out, everybody learns somewhere along the line. You have to. Okay, let's take a look around and see what we can come together on here. Okay, so the first things first. Obviously, I don't have my rear apron on because I need to buy one. But anyhow, you have your seal that goes around the engine compartment and up and around, okay? And that keeps the heat down from the cylinder heads, pistons, you know, so the heat can't get back up into the engine compartment. And we'll go over the cooling system so it'll make sense. But here's the seal. As you can see, mine's dry rotted and gone. We'll be putting a new one on, obviously, with the mild restore we're going to do. But it comes around, hooks to the inside of the apron, and goes back and up and around. I'll show you what I mean back here. I know this is an awkward film. See the seal right there? There we go. The seal is right there, okay? So it goes up and around and back down. You'll see when I pull the engine out what I'm talking about. Okay, so you need that seal all the way around. It is very important. A lot of guys, if they see them ripped, they just rip them off and throw them out or whatever. But it is very important because all your heat on the bottom from the cylinder heads, the pistons and cylinders, your exhaust system, that heat will rise up through, come into the engine compartment, and you got a hot running motor. Okay, that's number one. Okay, the second thing. A lot of people add oil coolers, the aftermarket ones like you see here. I know some people like to get it to run as cool as they possibly can, and I understand it's an air-cooled engine. Do not put your oil cooler in front of your fan. You're going to restrict the air from getting inside to cool everything properly. If you must do an external oil cooler, put it underneath the car above the transaxle with an electric fan or somewhere else that you can hide it, you know, so it doesn't get damaged. But when you start, just pretend this is a fan pulling in air, which it is, and you're covering something over it. Your oil temperature and probably cylinder head temperature is going to rise because you're probably blocking off 50 to 60% of the cooling capacity. Some people run them that way. Maybe they've never had an issue, maybe they're lucky, or maybe they're taking the longevity away from their motor and don't know it. But you do not want to block that off with anything. So find somewhere else to locate your oil cooler if you must have an external one. Okay, that was number two. The next thing we're going to discuss is monitoring your temperature of the motor. I do it by ear. It just, from so many years, I guess I could tell if it's running too hot. However, here's an oil temperature gauge. Okay, here. See? Okay. This is not my most favorite thing. Now, they sell the little plaques here. Why did I say plaques? They sell these little grills right there, and you can fit gauges in them, like you see here. Probably the best one you can really run would be a cylinder head temperature gauge, because most of the heat created, it's not really going to be your oil temperature. Your oil temperature will reflect things, but the cylinder head temperature is the thing that gets hot. So that's what you basically would want to monitor. So you might want to get yourself a cylinder head temperature gauge before you get an oil temperature gauge. I just had this on hand, so I thought I would show it. That is more wise to monitor that if you must do it at all. I seldom run gauges depending on what motor I'm running, but your cylinder head temperature is very important as opposed to the oil temperature. I'm not saying oil temperature is not important, so don't go that route. But you do want to monitor your cylinder head temperature. That's first on your list for a gauge if you're going to run gauges and want to monitor it. That's number 3. Okay, so how's the air come in and circulate and what's it do? Okay, when you're going down the road or from the pull of the fan, maybe sitting at idle, so to speak, the air is coming down over the roof in these vents, and you can see the cross vents inside on the picture here. Okay, the air comes down, it goes through these vents, and it'll go into the back, and it sucks in through the doghouse fan shroud, and it pulls the air through, and of course it starts cooling down the cylinder heads. These go to your heater box. I'll show you up close in a minute what I'm talking about. But a lot of guys will run deck lid standoffs. I personally do run them, and can I say there's a huge difference? I don't know. I can't prove it. I don't run gauges normally. But when your deck lid stood open in the back, you get more airflow down in. It's just common sense when the air is coming down around the big round roof here. It will come down. This is the cold part of the engine, and your air goes down through the fan, and it goes down through your tins. So let me bring you up close here and show you what I mean. So now that I stated the air comes down through, in through the fan housing, just like you'll see here, it goes in the back. I happen to have a spare motor, of course. It goes into the back, and then the air goes down around to the cylinder heads. The air being pulled in around back, if you're not going to run the heater hoses that go down to the mufflers, it's easier to show you here. Your heater hoses come down and hook onto the muffler right there. That's them little cheap, crappy hoses that you see. They're aluminum. Your air comes in, it pushes down through there. If you're not going to run these hoses, if you don't need to and you run headers, whatever, and you don't have these couplers on, cap those off. Because if not, you're just wasting air into the engine compartment that could be going down to the cylinder heads. So if you're not going to run hoses, cap them off. They sell caps for them, or I've seen people take lids off of baby food jars and put them up on there, a little screw to hold them in place. Cap them off if you're not going to have a hose. The hoses come down and go onto here, and they blow heat through the heater boxes, just like so. The heat will blow down through, and of course you get warm air into your car in the winter time. And yes, heater boxes do work. I've had them on my cars. The Super Beetle in my first series that I restored, the guy had to wind the windows down and close the heat off. That's how well they do work. So when people say they don't, then they've got a problem somewhere, because I can heat a car up with no problem with factory style as long as everything is accurately done the way it should be. Once you get the cooling system right and everything is functioning, see those tins right there? Okay, the air is going to flow down from the back of the cylinder heads and out the back of the car. Let me try to go on the side. Hopefully this makes sense. The air will come down and out the back of the car. You'll see the opening here, and that is your push rod tubes and your cylinder heads, okay? If in fact you're running J tubes or straight headers, there's your heater box, which would be missing, and you'd have J tubes, you're not gonna have the attachments to run this tin. If you don't have that tin, your car is going to run very hot, okay? So you will need to replace those tins with what you see here and attach them to your J tubes, because you don't want to run without those tins. They're very important. Those tins keep that hot air circulated and coming out the back of the car and cool the jugs properly. That make sense? Okay, another very important thing. This is a 1500 engine, 1500 cc. It's in my 68. The doghouse fan shroud on here, the oil cooler is right here, okay? And let me see if I can get behind it to show you what I mean. See how, this will make sense in a minute. See how it's flat in the back? That's your fan shroud there, or the fan blade there. See how it's all flat? There's nothing sticking out. Now, as I showed you on the 1500, this is a 1600 motor. See how the oil cooler is out. It's not inside the fan shroud. When you're inside the fan shroud, okay, yes, the air is coming through and going through the oil cooler, but you're starving out the cool air going down to the cylinder heads, especially number 3, okay? What they did here and redesigned it for the 1600, as you see the extra ductwork, and the oil cooler sits out further, okay? And of course the fan blows air through the oil cooler, and there's a chute here. I don't have it on mine right now, and this is all boxed in, okay? And there's a little exhaust port here, and the air will come through and go down and out the little exhaust, which is below that seal in the engine compartment that we talked about, okay? And it goes out the bottom of the car, okay? So this is definitely a nice upgrade. There's no doubt about it. Oil will run a little bit cooler. It goes through the ductwork, out the chute. You'll see it in one of my earlier videos, my installation tins, where this is all enclosed with a little exhaust that comes out here, and the heat goes out the bottom of the car. That's a good addition right there if you want to upgrade to get the motor to run a little bit cooler, okay? Okay, we're gonna talk about your timing, okay? If you look at a previous video of mine, I had discussed setting the static time. That's to get the engine started, okay? And I'm going somewhere with this, be patient. Set the static time, and like I showed in my previous video, maybe 1 or 2 videos back, I can't remember, not very far, okay? That's to get it started up, and some people leave them at static time. But a lot of times people will do what I do, and we set it at full advance, which would be around 3,000 RPMs. And they say you can go from 28 to 32 degrees at full advance. It's probably a good idea if you can keep it at around 28 degrees at full advance, okay? Because the more advanced you start going, now we're talking a stock engine, the more advancement you start going, like 30, 32 degrees, you're gonna cause the engine to start running hotter. And what we're discussing today is how to make them run cooler. They're air cooled. So you'll wanna keep it at a happy 28 degrees full advance if possible. If you need to advance it a little more for any reason, I don't know, go ahead, but I wouldn't really advise it. Now, if you have a bigger engine, of course, you know, with a big cam and higher compression or whatever, yeah, then sometimes I've seen guys go clear up to 36, 38 degrees full advance. But we're discussing typical stock engines and the cooling systems, because a bigger portion of the people are running a stock motor. So try to keep it at 28 degrees full advance. Don't go past that unless you have to, okay? Now we're gonna move on to your fuel, because we know now with the ethanol fuels, 10% alcohol, which is probably 20%, but I don't believe them. I think there's more alcohol in it than they claim, okay? That is going to make your car run hotter. Beetles do not like to be run on the lean side. They like to run rich. When stock, it don't matter. They like to run rich, okay? This is not the carburetor that I normally use, but let's pretend this is the average 34 pick 3 that a ton of people run. A lot of times there's a 125 main in there. You'll want to up it to a 127.5 or even a 130, okay? And I'm not saying this is for everybody, but you're going to need to burn more fuel, technically speaking, in today's standards to get it to run cooler. If it's running too lean, then you're going to have a car that's running hot. So the best way to do is to check your plugs. Are they lean? Are they rich? And that's what you need to go by. Now, I'm not saying having your Beetle run super rich with blowing gas out the tailpipe or anything crazy. All I am saying is they don't like to run lean. It will cause a hot condition. So upping the main jet can usually solve that issue because of the ethanol fuel, thanks to you know who. But anyhow, That's another thing to help you get your motor to run a little bit cooler. Okay, another thing you're going to want to watch for is how tight your belt is. This is not right. I didn't do this. Anyhow, if you have your belt too loose, obviously it's going to slip on the pulley and your fan's not going to turn properly, which will result in a hot running engine and possibly a catastrophe. Always carry an extra belt, by the way. I did a video on things you should carry in your VW, so you might want to carry an extra belt. If this belt pops, you have no fan and you have a melted engine. So don't over tighten this and don't under tighten it, so to speak. You're using your shims, okay? And I can do a video on that, but to adjust the tension properly. You want it to turn 90 degrees, and that's it. You don't want it to turn 180 all the way around, okay? About a 90-degree turn, okay? And you're gonna have a little slack in it because you're supposed to, okay? But if it's too loose, well, the belt will be going and this won't be turning as fast and you're gonna have an issue. Another thing, I know everybody likes to get fancy with the chrome, and clear back from when I rode motorcycle for 30 some years, chrome don't get you home. Although I had a lot of chrome on my bike. Okay. Sorry, I gotta chew in. Chrome pulleys look great. I know they're wonderful, and when you lift the engine compartment, the crowd's cheering. I get it. A lot of the chrome pulleys, and not everybody, I know somebody's gonna go in the comments, I've never had an issue. It only takes one, but I know somebody that did have an issue. We resolved it. The chrome pulley was so nice and smooth and shiny that the belt wasn't spinning the pulley fast enough because it was lightly slipping on the nice smooth chrome. So I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, when you paint these pulleys, they look very nice. So paint it to match your fan shroud or whatever you're doing fancy, but try to stay away from the chrome pulleys if you can. That's just a personal opinion. I know I'm partially right about that one. Okay, so that was today's video, or should I say this week's video. I hope it helps a few people, especially guys that are new to the air-cooled scene, or maybe you've been in it for a while and didn't realize a couple certain things. What this community about is helping other people. So share the video, maybe others can use it, maybe it'll be educational, or maybe go over a few things you've forgotten over the years. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to hit like and share the channel if possible. Thanks again.